Oh, it's a huge time of opportunity, but it's a time of reflection and thinking about priorities as well, I think. Because in the past, what's been sold to us at the moment, if you look at the MBA schools, if you look at what you're being told, it's like, we need constant growth. Constant growth means basically use more resources more quickly, collect more toys. That was primarily what's been driving our society. I think what's going to happen is we're going to start to come back and slow down just a little bit. We're going to start to reflect, and we're still going to want a high standard of living, but that standard of living will start to be defined by the time we have for ourselves and our families. An opportunity for personal growth, a bit of time to read, a bit of time to just sit and chat with family, rather than rush, 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 accumulate a few more toys, rush, 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 accumulate a few more. So I think what's going to happen is not only are we talking about some technological transitions, but we may give an opportunity for a social transition back to a time where our families and our friends can play a little bit larger role in our lives, and that part of what we may do, instead of growing in the conventional sense where the economy wants to sell more of these widgets this week, we'll get a time to spend time with family, to enjoy little things, like maybe we'll all grow a little bit in the garden, or we'll do this or that. And those sort of things will start to perhaps shape the future. Because right now, a concept of we're always going to grow in terms of economic dollars exchanging hands and things being made, eventually that cannot be sustainable. You know, so now what we have to start to look at is what's really important to us. And, you know, work days going to 10, 12, 14 hours, maybe they need to slow down a little bit.
In your expertise, and you've brought up a couple of really interesting points, has our economy and has society almost become a heroin addict? And I ask that in a certain way that all we do is we're always looking for our next fix, our next high, our next kind of achievement, our next kind of thought. There's only 24 hours in a day, and we will succeed at whatever cost. And if that's environmental, we've got to pay environmental. We'll just roll over that. We'll just keep on going. And for this concept that you're talking about, are we talking that it's going to take 20 or 30 or 50 years to see that societal change?
No, I think you're seeing it right now. I think you're starting to see people starting to say, you know, I want to work a little bit less. I want to take a little bit of time. I've got young children. I'd like to see them growing up. People are, not necessarily everyone, but people are starting to look at that. The biggest key is that our planners, our business leaders, our politicians, everybody sort of has to get to having a similar reflection so that all the different aspects of society can be meshed up well in order to try and make that work.
Your company, Omachron Sciences, could you share with our audience what what your company specializes in?
Well, what we do is we solve problems, technical problems, and we often do them in new and unusual ways. We are often applying technology from 100 years ago with new materials and new control systems and turning them into new opportunities. So we've done all kinds of different things, from simple consumer appliances where we try to make, say, new vacuum cleaners that are on the market now where they use a lot less energy, they don't have any bags to replace, nothing to throw away, and they're lighter, use less materials to make them, last longer, are becoming repairable. A lot of the appliances we're developing for new clients now go back to being repairable so that we can, and then people say, oh, but that'll cost money. But you know, when you look at things as an example, is if you have a toaster, if I sell you a toaster for $10 or $20, if the one for 20 will last you the next 20 years and can be repaired when you want, and that repair keeps someone in your local community employed, how is that a bad thing?
And how, and directly, how does that impact our environment, which is a major subject matter today? Repairing goods means less in the landfill, or less in the recycling area, or greenhouse gases, or manufacturing gases.
Absolutely. It's a big circle, but the most common sense one is eluding us right now. We talk about recycling, but in recycling, you're really putting a lot of energy back into an item.
Right.
In order to reuse the raw materials again. But the amount of energy that goes in is still quite tremendous. So, you know, you would say, oh, there's an aluminum can. Well, if we made it from raw, you're using a lot of energy. If you recycle it, you're using less. If you could use something that's refillable, you'd use even less. And so we want to start thinking about that. So when you ask what we specialize in solving a lot of different technical problems. But what we're doing is we've been doing for the last 15 years, before it was so popular and cachet to be doing it, is we've been looking at addressing environmental issues in the designs, looking at better efficiency. A lot of my patents relate to better efficiency, less materials and so on. And that goes way back before it was so-called popular. Now it's a popular topic, but it's not yet being done. It's just being talked about.
Isn't it great that a guy like you is finally, I mean, all the work, the dedication, the hard work, the lonely nights, those kind of things are being asked for your opinion, especially at this time, and it's such an important time in our society. If you could see for yourself something that you would love for us to embrace over the next 5 to 10 years, what would it be?
I think the main thing we've got to do is, and there are many main things, but if I really look at one that really will affect my kids, my family, your kids and family, I think the main one is the fact that right now we don't really have good control over such a simple, basic thing as our food. Everybody's trying to sell food that's mass manufactured, that's a lower cost, at huge environmental resources are used to make it. You know, huge amounts of energy process our foods. It's a scary story, but philosophically, with the technology we're developing right now, we're going to make it so that greenhouses can be used right here in Canada or the northern US or anywhere that don't need any energy except solar energy.
Wow.
And those greenhouses will let us grow our own fresh fruit and vegetables and berries year-round. And we're going to do it with no pesticides and no herbicides and no chemicals. And right now, even organic things, because of the nature of how polluted our world really is now, even things grown organically, as we've been testing them, have huge levels of pesticides and herbicides relative to what would really likely be safe, which would be to have none. So yes, those things are often much better than the non-organic, but we're not there yet. Even organic doesn't necessarily mean safe, because, and I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek, if you're growing this beautiful organic farm here and the guy up the hill is spraying everything he can on, every time it rains, you get to enjoy some of that at least on your organic crop. And that is happening in the real world. We're seeing it when we test foods. So I think one of the most important things is to get back in touch with what food is worth, where we're at, and really look at that, because we are saying to ourselves to a great degree, technology will fix everything. It'll fix the environment. If you get sick, it'll magically cure you. It's actually not the case. Our medicine's made great strides. People are very, very dedicated. But the rate at which cancers and other things are growing is outstripping our rates to cure them. So what we've got to look and sit back and say, hey, we maybe need to slow down a little bit. We need to think about what is important. And a lot of our farmers are hardly able to make ends meet. And what we really want to do is say to them, here, live a little better, use less chemicals, produce a little less, we'll pay a little more for it. But you know what? When we eat it, it becomes part of us, and we really need to stay healthy.
And the domino effect, of course, is healthcare. We're going to see some of the less kind of diseases and sicknesses that we're seeing in our youth. We'll see a lower rate of obesity. Learning levels go up because of nutrition levels.
You understand. Absolutely.
So
that's why I picked one that may not have seemed obvious to many. I mean, yourself, with your experience, it seems extremely obvious that that's where to start. Because otherwise you would have thought, well, why don't we start with transportation and cars? And why don't we start with energy? But those are just as important. Like, they would be my number 2 and 3 there. But ultimately, food, our health, our ability to live well is defined by our health. I mean, until you get sick sometime or someone close to you does, you really don't understand that.
They always say that you can never help an individual or your community or your family if you are not healthy yourself.